everybody, welcome back to Three Guys and Two Guys and a Ball. Where's Jake?
So Jake messaged me from the Netherrealm, and he said that he can't make it. So apparently that black hole that you crawled out of, I guess he tried to save you, so he got sucked in the black hole and got you out.
You know what? I remember because I did have a conversation with him after the last time that we were on with Sergeant Major Jill. And he was like, I didn't really understand what you guys were saying because I wasn't in the Army. I realized I still had crayons in my teeth from chewing my crayons, and he just felt out of place. So he's going to step aside so that we can have Army dude talk.
Oh, boy. Poor old Jake. I hope he's okay in his black hole of his.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't have too much green crayon in his teeth. Sergeant Major Jill, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent, Tim. How are you?
Can I call you Sergeant Major Jill, or
you can. I have I got different nicknames. I got Sergeant Major JJ, Sergeant Major Jill's good.
JJ's kind of good.
It's all good.
All right, so today's ball is Sergeant Major JJ. Let me get this thing going. Ready?
Wait a minute, I got this.
Whoa.
Oh, camouflage soccer ball.
Watch out.
And she knife-handed you on top of that.
That's right.
Knife-handed. You know, I did that the other day to my wife. We were doing a nature trail, and she was like, which way should we go? And I was like, we'll go that way. She's like, why do you throw that up in my face like all the time when we're driving? You're like, go that way. What is this? I was like, you know what? The next time we see so-and-so, you can just ask them, like, why does Tim do this? And they'll go into like an entire story about why this is done.
Now it's just more for fun and a joke. No one really, well, at least who I'm around doesn't really do it for, serious anymore, but it's always fun to joke around. And the thing is, Tim, I thought I told you to get off my grass in the last episode. Why are you still standing on it?
Oh,
I'm sorry. I just had to, the fun Sergeant Major jokes.
Tim is like, crap. I shouldn't have played tennis this morning. Shit.
I did play tennis.
Oh, it's all good.
You did play tennis.
I not gonna lie, I'll just throw this out there. I totally ruined the 70-year-old lady today in tennis. I felt amazing. I was like, whatever, chick. And she was like, great, Tim. You can run. Perfect. Anyways, let's find our purpose. Like, as we're getting ready to transition out of the military, shall we?
Yeah.
Beating old ladies in tennis.
That's how I roll.
I wasn't expecting a 70-year-old lady comment. I was like, oh, you play tennis with a 75-year-old lady. No kidding.
That's awesome.
Don't hate.
So, Sergeant Major Joe, how much longer do you plan on staying in the military before you officially call it quits?
Well, right now I'm planning to go to at least about 2028. So that's a few more years.
Wow.
That would put me at 27 years roughly.
God.
So
seems like a long way away.
It does, but I mean, it's going really fast actually. I mean, I look back from where I started to now, and it's just like, wow, where did all the time go? I mean, some days it's like, wow, I was just going through basic training, or I was just deployed, and I was a young 20-year-old, and now I'm like, mid 40s. It's like, what the hell happened? But so that's the long-term goal. The Army does have a kick me out date, which is a little further than that, because
the Army does have a kick you out date. Like, you stay in too long, they just kick you out, so you're done.
Right, your mandatory removal date. So and that's a little further. So I have different benchmarks along the way, and part of it is just checking on how I feel. It's been a long road, even though we're saying it's gone fast. I mean, it's a lot physically, mentally, emotionally. And so, I have different benchmarks, and, I'm already looking, I'm still focused on what I'm doing now. I think part of one of the decision-making points of, getting out of service is, am I still effective? So if I'm not effective, if I'm not making a positive impact on soldiers, if I'm not in the job making a difference, then I don't need to be doing it. And so, you know, that's kind of the barometer as well. You know, so, but at the same time, I'm still looking and I've actually probably started connecting on LinkedIn much earlier than a lot of people because I kind of wanted to see what's out there. You know, I've made some great connections and some friends, and when that time comes, you know, I have people that I can go to and say, hey, what did you do, you know, as you're transitioning out? Or, you know, I have thoughts of things I would like to do. My sister and I would like to do some stuff together. So I'm very open to different things, but also still focused on what I'm doing now. But I don't want to wait till the end comes, because I have ideas of when I think I want to end service, but what happens if service ends before that? You know, I want to be able to already have started researching and looking into what that next thing looks like.
Well, and unless you want to pick up your next gig at Subway, like probably you need to start planning your next thing before you're out, because good things take time. May I introduce a couple anecdotes from my experience?
Yes, please.
Perfect. So actually, I do work with a lot of like law enforcement people who are transitioning to the corporate sector. You know, it's interesting when you were talking about thinking about when you're going to be getting out, how do you measure effectiveness, how fast time goes. I was doing my annual revisit of the resume. And, you know, I'm not necessarily looking for a job, although I do interview a lot because I think that's a good skill to keep sharp. But every year I look at my resume to track growth. What have I grown in this year? What can I sharpen up, add to my resume? What new dimension do I have available? But also, long time ago, the first time I got laid off, I realized that you always have to have that thing semi-polished so you can launch it today. I realized that when I was in the military, I got out in 2005. In 2007, I was back contracting in Iraq, and the Iraq contracting experience paired with my deployments in the military defined the majority of my life. That is all gone. It's been longer than 10 years ago. It's not even on my resume. And in fact, in a year and a half, there will not be a single tactical thing left on my resume.
Wow.
No kidding.
That's crazy just to think about that. Wow.
Time does go fast. And I don't feel like I'm that old, although I am looking 40 in the eye later on this year. And the other thing is, when I was contracting over in Iraq, I decided I wanted to go home and get a real job before Iraq closed and all of the contractors were looking for real jobs. And I went home for about 4 months. I ended up getting back on a contract after 4 months because I had not planted a network. I hadn't jumped on LinkedIn. I hadn't connected with a lot of people that were in the industry, the executive protection industry that I was looking to go into. I hadn't planted the seeds, and I walked into a civilian desert. No options, nothing available to me because I hadn't pre-worked the soil. So I went back on another 8-month contract, and that entire 8 months, besides do my job, LinkedIn, networking, Skype calls with people, getting known. And when I got back the second time, 8 months later, I had a really good gig inside of 3 months.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that prior planning really does prevent piss poor performance.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And yeah, and I think that's what happens sometimes is I think the mindset is that, it's funny mindset, right? That there'll be time, or, you know, I'll be able to figure it out after the fact. And, you know, some people can, and, you know, it works out for them. But I think for the majority, you definitely need to do that planning that you're saying ahead of time, so you have that smooth transition. In fact, it's just interesting today, just to kind of go off that point, that there was a person that just sent out an email to a large distro indicating that they were retiring. And after, you know, 20 some years of service, and they're going to be transitioning right into a business. So they've obviously had already started working that before they decide to retire out of the military. So they're going to have a nice transition from time in service into their business. So I don't think it's too soon to start, because if you have those goals set, it may take you in a different path. It's better to have a plan that you can adjust from than not have one at all.
Well, and where you are at in your career with the military, correct me if I'm wrong, you can move your retirement up, right? You can just be like, hey, I'm kind of done. So if you had something that came alive, you could be like, you know what? I am going to leave in 6 months. Like, I'm going to cut this short because I have this opportunity. You have that available to you?
I will in about another 6 months.
Okay.
So
I'll that's
hit that,
important to plan
21.
on, right?
Yeah.
Because good things don't happen overnight all the time.
Mm-hmm.
However, if an opportunity presents itself and you're not able to take advantage of it, that could be an issue. The other thing, and Paul, I'm going to kick this to you. How many vets have you known that have ETS, retired, whatever, they didn't have a pre-work plan, and going home to their new home, they moved back where they came from, or they picked another state that they thought they wanted to go to, and all of a sudden sitting at home trying to get in a routine, trying to find a gig, drop them into a depression. They lost their purpose because they didn't have a transition plan.
You know, that happens to a lot of veterans. Actually, that happened to me. You know, and yeah, it's crazy. So you would think that talking to me like now, it's very, very different than when I was 25, when I first got out. You know, I was, by all accounts, I was an alcoholic, because I think I was drinking like almost 2.5 bottles of wine a night. 2.5 bottles, dude. You know, for an Asian guy, that's quite a bit. Just so you guys know, you know, Asians get drunk like that.
Right. Yeah. Well,
so there's not that many of them in the military, but those that are around, you can usually find one every 50 miles. There's like one little Asian person like right there. But you know, I struggled. You know, I went everywhere. I mean, just a little bit of a recap. I took the California Basic Educational something CBEST. So California Basic Educational Skills Test. Basically, it's a test you need to pass in order to qualify as a substitute teacher, right? I passed it. It was great. That's when, for like a fleeting moment, I wanted to be a high school teacher. Didn't really pursue it beyond that one. Worked for U-Haul for a little bit. Didn't really know what I was going to do. And the funny thing is that I kind of almost want to tell people nowadays is that, look, try not to follow the pattern that is taught to you in schools. I'm not saying schools are bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying colleges are bad. That's not what I'm saying either. What I'm saying is that the educational system has a tendency to train you and teach you to find a job. Job, right? Not to start your own business, not to collaborate, not to coordinate, not to teach
plan a career.
Or plan a career.
A job is different from a career.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of times is, you know, what I learned probably the most is, don't just have finances, don't just have money as your primary goal, right? You want to have other things. Like, for example, you can make a lot of money at a job and absolutely freaking hate it.
You know, how many lawyers do you know? And lawyers almost all hate their jobs. So like FYI, unless you're super into lawyering, I know a ton of them. Most of them are alcoholics, and they can't wait to get out of the office. If that's not you, disregard, but it probably is you if you're a lawyer. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They get paid a lot though.
They do, you know, lawyers get paid. Now, I didn't know that lawyers didn't want to be lawyers. I thought that was just like, you know, I don't know if you guys saw the whole 9 yards. Like, I thought it was just like a dentist thing, you know, like dentist.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Good movie.
I don't know how true that is. I just remember that from the movie.
No, and you know, when you're in the military provides you with your mission and your purpose. And when you've graduated high school or college and gone straight into the military, you've made a career out of it, and you've never had to find your own purpose or mission, that can be daunting. What do you think, Jill?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like for me, I came in after I went to college. I did have some work experience before joining the military. So for me, I wasn't really looking at it so much to begin with as what was going to be a career. I think I said that in the last podcast, but I was looking for like the challenge and something new because I had a different direction I thought I was going. And so if it's the only thing that you have ever known, I mean, I've known people that have gone in, you know, when they were 17 and, you know, that's all they've ever known is the military. So it is very scary if you do a whole career and then you come out or even do a little bit of time and come out and not really know where to go after that.
Yep.
And I know for me, you know, I'm not too worried because one, at least when I leave, I'll have military retirement. So I'll have a little bit of something there and I can really pursue something that I really want to do. I could probably be a little more choosy. But, you know, somebody that has just done the military and hasn't had that plan, it can be scary. And that's one thing that I try to do right now, even with the connections I have when I'm talking to soldiers that are going to get out. I'm asking, what's your plan? You know, what are you going to do? Have you even thought about it? You know, I'm trying to also, part of my purpose in what I'm still doing is that as well. I know that, yes, the military gives us mission and gives us purpose, but, you know, I've also spent where I'm at my career trying to also refine that purpose. Sometimes you lose it because sometimes you just do the same day in, day out stuff. You know, all the fun soldiering things are, you know, I don't get to do those as much anymore. So it's very much administrative heavy. So the time I can be with soldiers is awesome. And so I think that, you know, being able to help them in those ways as well helps me with my purpose and why I'm still there as well. So
if you had to, so you have 7 years left. That seems like so long away.
Well, I mean, it does. I hit 20 in April, but you know,
Wow.
part of it is I have some reserve time. So I'm trying to go longer for my retirement because of that. But when I hit that 20 years, that gives me that ability, as Tim was talking about, that if something else were to come my way that, you know, that I just feel like I can't miss this opportunity, then, you know, I could at that point, you know, put my request in to retire because I'm an indefinite soldier. I've already hit my statutory obligation probably now a couple times over, but, you know, but like part of me still is like, you know, I'm not at that point yet that I want to leave service. There's been times, and, you know, I've thought about it, but now I'm excited because, you know, they made me a sergeant major. And so I have like this whole other, you know, avenue to pursue. I mean, it's a small group and I can have an impact, and that's important to me. So like I said, I want to go as far as I can until I'm not feeling effective. But, you know, like I said, you know, you never know what could happen between now and then, and where life things happen. So that's why, like I had said, you know, I am planning, I have, you know, different goals, different benchmarks, you know, things in mind, so that if something were to happen and I would have to leave service, that I wouldn't be just completely like, oh, what do I do now? So.
No, that's that. Well, go ahead, Tim. No, I think that's so. Jill, I was going to ask you. So if you, let's say you had to retire, let's say you have 6 months, right? Your opportunity comes up in 6 months. If you could see yourself retiring, what kind of job would it be? Or what would you see yourself going, like doing? Like what kind of industry, what kind of job? Like what do you, I mean, you have a retirement, so money is not like top priority right now at that moment.
No, that's a good question. I mean, there's a couple different things I've thought of. I mean, part of me is like, yeah, that subway job kind of sounds good, you know, just punch in, punch out. not necessarily at Subway per se, but you know, I've thought about that. I've always been really like interested in the airlines, and I know that, you know, sometimes that industry gets hit hard when there's let's say,
COVID.
unfortunate, 9/11, things that impact. But I've always just been interested in that, and I could see myself being like a gate agent and welcoming people on the plane, and letting our service members board first and have a great flight, just something like that to me it seems like it's kind of fun and not a lot of stress. I mean, I've dealt with people my entire career, so angry passengers, just put on my little, customer service Sergeant Major hat and say, okay, let me see how we can help you, get them calmed down, So I've thought about that. My sister and I have thought about maybe doing our own business together. And we've always talked about coaching, and she's a teacher. So, I probably will retire before she does, but I'm 3 years older. And, but that's something that we've talked about doing, and coaching. And once I'm retired, then that would be easier to do that, because then I can be in one spot and we could do that. So there's some things like that. And then just kind of open to whatever. I would like to write a book one day. That's on my goal. That's a goal I have. Just about my experiences, but it's I try to write and journal as much as I can to capture things, because I really don't know what it would look like, until my time of service is done. So there's a lot of things, and then just enjoying, just being able to travel. That's also some of the things I'm, looking at, because you guys know, for the time that you're in service, is that there's a lot that, we give up, there's a lot of, time that we give, that we don't always get back. And so I look forward to when that time I do get back to really be able to live it to the fullest, and do the passion stuff.
I like that you're open to options. I like that you're really looking for something that's fun, right? Because you need a break. The other thing is, I was just doing an interview the other day, and they were like, oh, talk about your transition. Well, I was in the National Guard, so I was always kind of halfway transition. I was doing the military thing, doing my civilian job. I was a paramedic. I was in healthcare. But actually, I ETS'd about 4 months after we got back from Iraq. And once I got back from Iraq and I jumped back on the ambulance, I realized that I was bored. This could not live up to hanging out in a combat zone.
Right.
And I was actually looking through my options. And even though I didn't have to transition back to the civilian side after my ETS, I realized that I needed to transition careers to something different. And so when you get out, you may put your sights on something. You may say, like, I want to do this. I want this to be my career. Be open to the fact that you may get there and realize that you want something else, or this was fun for a while, but it's not so fun anymore, and you want to do something else. And don't ever feel like you're locked into a single path. You have a broad skill set. You have a lot of acumen to learn. People in the military, you have to learn new things and new environments all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Take advantage of that, and be willing to pivot and jump into a new industry.
Absolutely.
One of the things I also want to share is that failure is probably one of the best teachers you have. I mean, I know, like I said, I don't, again, going back to the school system, but like, failing is bad, right? At school, you get an F, oh my gosh, your life is over. But in reality, failing in a lot of ways teaches you, right? And that's one thing about one thing I would like to share, just from my own personal experience, is that you're going to fail a lot. I mean, you want to talk about landmines, you're going to, self-inflicted wounds and throwing yourself into a minefield. You're going to do that quite a bit, but sometimes you don't even know you're doing it.
Yeah.
But, the crazy thing is that you always look for your mentor, and we all look for mentors, and we all think that mentors, oh my gosh, they have it figured out. They won't make any mistakes. But a lot of times you don't realize that your mentor is just human beings, just like you are. They've just made more mistakes than you already have. So they know not to step on the same landmines like you're going to.
Where do you think those lessons that they're teaching came from?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you said that, Paul, about, the failing and not always knowing it. And it can be, I think maybe when it seems to be like a big failure, you probably know it, but I think there's little ones all the time as you're trial and error with different things that you're trying to make work. And it is the best tool for learning.
And
And
you can, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, you can also learn from other people's mistakes
Mhm.
or situations, right? So I have this lady that I'm mentoring right now. She graduated with a master's degree. I don't know why she's looking at me for mentoring, because she's way smarter than I am. But she's in her first job in project management outside of school.
Okay.
And so whenever I start talking to her, I'm like, hey, tell me about what's been going on since the last month we talked. And she was telling me about this meeting she went to, and like this person just got destroyed in this project meeting. She was like, I felt so bad. I was like, let's back that up. Let's go into detail on that, because that's not you yet, because you're new. But in 6 months or a year, that will be you. Let's dissect. You watched a murder, like a professional murder happen. Like this person's bleeding out in the conference room and nobody's helping them. Why did that happen? How did they get into that situation? How can you avoid that? What would have been your tactic for like slowing down the assault, regaining your composure, redirecting, thinking through? And I said, look, now that you're in a job, you're going to be witness to all sorts of autopsies that are not you being damaged, not you being dissected. There's somebody else, but that will be you at some point. Learn their lessons now so that you can recognize when that's coming.
And that's another thing that, don't be, because the corporate world works a little bit differently than, like, I would say the military does in some respects. And one of them is that you could be the superstar now, but like Tim said, in 6 months, you could be literally this close to be fired.
Yeah.
It's a really quick turnaround, and I don't know about you or Jill, but I've actually been part of that, where I was superstar 1 month and then 6 months later, what happened?
That's the different thing about the civilian, right? Like before we hit record, what were we talking about? We were talking about all the times we got thrown into the freaking sandpit, man. And plow a row with your head doing low crawls. Like that's fun. But the military can't really fire you unless you do something crazy. You get scuffed up, you get made fun of. The people that you're around, they kind of look at you, they kind of laugh, you shake it off. In a couple of days, it's better. They can't really take anything from you besides rank and some pay. When you get scuffed up in front of your peers at a job and then they're like, yeah, I don't know if this is going to work out, you may lose your job. How much worse is that? Yeah. That is a mental weight. That is why people get anxiety. And this is where you have to work on leveling yourself, right? In the military, you can go up and down, up and down. The military designs it to have highs and lows, but the team kind of balances it out. But when there's competition in between team members at a job, you have to learn how to level yourself out and compensate.
That's actually very well said.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And and that's hard if you are in a career field, and especially when you have that hanging over your head, especially if like the culture and the environment kind of gives that vibe off, where you're constantly working under that, oh, I could be fired any moment if I do this or do that. In the military, like you said, Tim, it takes some pretty egregious acts, and if anything, you may just get reassigned to a different position or a different job. I mean, we know commanders getting relieved. They don't necessarily leave the military. They just go somewhere else to do something else. That kind of anxiety to work under, live under, that can't be fun.
Well, let's round this out. Do you have a checklist, Sergeant Major JJ, of like, hey, when I transition, I'm going to make sure like bam, 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 to set myself up for like a stable lifestyle so I can actually explore and find my purpose?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I really have one set that's written down, which I should probably start doing. It's definitely in my head, You know, the first thing is, you know, I definitely want to make sure financially, you know, coming out of the military, I'm secure, because I want to, you know, the next step, you know, I do intend to try to take a little bit of some time, you know, before going on to the next thing. And like I said, you know, some of the things my sister and I have been talking about, that we would like to maybe do together. I told her, I was like, listen, we need to start talking about it now, because we don't want to wait till we're at retirement and then be like, oh, let's do this. You know, we need to start making those plans of what we would like to do, how we think we're going to do it, where we're going to need to get support and stuff like that. So to your point, I definitely probably need to start that checklist, and because I do make checklists for lots of different things, and it's probably wise to start that one now. But definitely, you know, the financial secure piece first, and then you know, right now it's really still exploring. Like you said, I am open because I've met so many different people. I've networked with so many people. There could be something that I haven't even thought of that could be brought to my attention. I mean, like, oh, I would love to do that. I definitely want to stay connected to veterans, and what I do needs to continue to help people. Like, that's the bottom line. Like, even when I leave service, and even if it's a business my sister and I may start, it's not for us to make this profit to be like, oh, whatever. It's like, we want to be able to continue to help people with what we're going to provide. Because that's both important to us. Why she's a teacher, why I'm in the military.
You know, and that's so important that you recognize that you've already realized the foundation of your purpose, right? No matter what it is you do, you have to check that box at core. And that trumps finances, that trumps the coolness of your job, because if you're not fulfilling that need within yourself, you're not going to be happy.
Absolutely. And it's not always about money. It's nice to have because it allows you to do things, but all of my needs have been met. I haven't had to worry, and I'm still able to have fun. And, you know, accumulating stuff for me, it collects dust. I don't have time for that. So, you know, to me, it's more about experience and definitely helping people.
Awesome. Awesome.
Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you very much, Sergeant Major Jill, for joining us for this episode. And by the way, before we end, I like to just to FYI, whenever you come up with that checklist, I don't know what it is, but I think you should have like a brand next to your name, have like a little logo, right? Sergeant Major Jill's points or whatever, and just probably with an icon or something. Pretty sure your colleagues would like that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but definitely, yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time.
Yeah.
We're three guys in a ball, and we're out.